Hello, my name is Marge Hutchison. I'm the Director of Vascular Testing Accreditation for the Intersocietal Accreditation Commission. Today I'm going to talk about top mistakes in vascular testing, simple ways to improve quality in the vascular laboratory. Hello, welcome to this discussion today. We're going to talk about simple things to improve quality in the laboratory. I've broken it down to 10, and these are things that you can do in your laboratory without any great software additions, anything that will not require huge amounts of money or huge amounts of effort. When you go into it to do a study every day, every patient, you need to think about quality. You need to treat that patient as though it is your only patient today, because you will not ever have a second chance to repeat the study. You will hardly ever have a physician say to their patient that, well, the first study wasn't that great, so I want you to go in and have a second one. You only get one chance to do a good quality study on everybody. And the first thing you can do to help the quality of your work is to clean up your space. You want to be sure that everything is in its place. You don't want all kinds of tangled things. You want everything clean. You want the patient to have a good experience, and they will have more confidence in you if your place presents properly. You want to be sure that all of these miscellaneous items are out of the patient's view, and be sure that in between the patients you clean up all the remnants from the previous patient. The second thing you need to do is get comfortable. You don't want to be reaching across the entire machine and the patient to find certain buttons that you need to know. Take time, position yourself and your patient comfortably so that you can reach the tools you need to document the study. The third thing you want to do is follow your protocol. Your technical director, your medical director, and many experts in the field have worked long and hard to give you good protocols, and if you follow the protocol every single time, every single patient, you will have all the images you need, you will have all the measurements you need, and you won't have to go back or call the patient back for missing images. So following the protocol gets you a good study at the end of the day. The fourth thing is knobology. Your machine comes with many knobs and many buttons and many slider bars and all kinds of things, but if you don't use them and you don't tweak them, your image will not be as good as it could be. So don't be afraid to flip things, turn things, adjust things. You can always turn them back if you realize that the image is not of good quality. But don't be afraid to use the tools given to you. And if you're really uncertain about what one thing does, you certainly have the right and the expectation to call your applications people, your equipment manufacturer, and learn what all of those tools are there for and how you can adjust them to improve your image quality. The fifth simple thing is to take your time. Anytime you take your time, you improve your accuracy. Don't rush, don't hurry. At the end of the day, it's not how fast you did your studies, but how good you did your studies. And so quality is the key, but in order for that to be accurate, you have to slow down and take your time. When you're done, you always want to check your work. Make sure that the images equal the impressions or the findings. You always want to be sure that you have image that documents what you think you have found. Don't cut corners. Don't skip images. Be sure you have all the required documentation. Now, this is a poor patient who's gotten this far into the system, and the problem is nobody proofed the final report, and so something may be wrong. So you always want to take time to look at your final reports. You may want to pull 10 a month and just sit down and read them, because inevitably someone will interchange the right for the left. They will interchange the numbers and the velocities, and it will look as though they have more pathology than they do. So always incorporate some type of a proofing system into your final reports. Number 8 is the key to any success is teamwork. And many times we find ourselves in a room with the machine and the patient, and we're struggling to find everything we need. But don't forget that you have other colleagues who may be able to help you with the images that you find. They may be able to help you run the machine. And don't forget that the patient is a wealth of information about their own health care. And so include the patient in your fact-finding missions. Always talk to them, figure out what their history is, figure out if they've had the test done before, what the findings were. They can have a lot of information that will help you as you proceed through your study. And then, of course, before you finish for the day, you always want to look at what you have. Look at your case study, look at your images, make sure it's a complete study before you let your patient go, and be sure you have everything you need to give the physician the required documentation to make an accurate interpretation. Number 9 out of 10 is peer review. You can help each other by reviewing each other's cases. Now, of course, you want to do this in a constructive manner, not in a punitive manner, but this will all help educate everyone on different areas where someone may have done something a little bit different. You can always help people improve their scanning technique, improve their interpretation technique by looking what's happened in the past, evaluating it, and giving your expert opinion. And lastly, although this is not the simple way to improve your quality, it certainly is well worth the effort, and it is going through accreditation. What accreditation does is it forces you to review all of your laboratory functions, your medical staff, your technical staff, all of your policies, your procedures, your cases, and it helps you to raise the bar for your lab. So once you become accredited, you have a certain level of quality, and then you can work for the rest of the time striving to raise the bar and improve your quality. And we also give you these little door clings so that you can advertise to your patients that you are a quality lab, and that is what accreditation stands for, is improving your quality. Thank you very much for participating in this lecture. Top mistakes in vascular testing. First of all, let me do a little bit of orientation to the changes that have happened at the IAC over the past few months here in 2012. You are very familiar with the acronym ICAVL, the little colored logos. However, in 2012, we have gone through a rebranding situation, and all of that has changed. And now you will notice that the new logo is that is appearing here. We are now the Vascular Testing Division. ICAVL is taking a back seat to that, and at some point in the future, the acronym will actually go away. The new colors for IAC that you will appreciate as you look through our website and all of our current documentation. Again, you see that ICAVL has taken the caboose to the picture there, and as you move forward with your accreditation process, you will receive new logos that will appear like this, and we will ask you as time progresses to change your old logos over to the new vascular testing logo. You will see that all of the divisions in the IAC also have gone through this same process, so all of us have lost our acronyms, and we are now all different divisions under the one IAC name. Now, as we move forward into the lecture, the first thing we're going to talk about is physiologic testing, and I will tell you that all of the cases that I talk about today have come directly from applicant laboratories. We see here that on the first case study that the ABIs are relatively normal, 1.03 on the right, 1.22 on the right, and on the left 1.24 and 1.20. So based on this initial exam, we do believe that the arterial flow is normal. However, when we look at the waveforms, we do appreciate that the waveforms do not support normal ABI. And the interesting thing is that proximally in the common femoral artery, they do appear normal. And although not of great quality, the lower DP image does appear to be triphasic as well. So the point of it is that when you see normal segmental pressures and normal ABI, you should strive to have normal waveforms. And it is exactly this information that gets sent to the physician, and he or she has a difficult time with interpretation because the waveforms appear to be suboptimal. Now in the next example, this is the exact same laboratory but different patients. And in one patient on the right, the ABI was 0.71 and the left was 0.75. The next patient also had a 0.71 ABI. However, you see a pretty significant change in the way the waveforms appear. And the same is true for the left. The first patient was 0.75, the second one is 0.77. One would expect that regardless of the patient that waveforms would reflect pretty similar because the ABIs are pretty similar. So this is the responsibility of the sonographer and the technologist to be sure that when you're giving your interpreting physician the data, that the data is correct and accurate. So when you see a discrepancy like this, it is your responsibility to go back to the patient and repeat the waveforms. Whether they should be normal or abnormal, 0.71 should equal the same thing pretty much across the board. Now the next physiologic study we look at, the DP and the PT on the right, ABI is 0.69 and 0.97, and on the left there's only one and it is 0.86. And it is interpreted as normal ABI on the right with mild decrease on the left. However, you look at those waveforms and they do not reflect relatively mild stenosis. Certainly the proximal waveforms appear worse than the distal ones. However, the top two on both sides bilaterally appear incredibly non-diagnostic and do not reflect the findings of the pressures. So again, when you're submitting a study to the physician for interpretation, this clearly does not represent, the waveforms clearly do not represent what the ABIs do. So again, this is a technical issue that must be corrected before the patient leaves and before the study goes to the physician. An upper extremity study, and you see on the left the waveforms are triphasic. They look pretty nice. The pressures are pretty much the same. There's not much disease going on. On the right, however, you see that the proximal waveforms are not too bad, but as you move distally, axillary, brachioradial, those waveforms begin to deteriorate a little bit. We do not truly appreciate a great change in the pressures bilaterally. And this interpretation read abnormal left. And I'm just going to backtrack a little bit and again reiterate that the left waveforms are not the issue, they are the right. And so this is an interpretation error in that the physician has inadvertently reported the wrong arm as being the abnormal one. And we see this regularly where wrong sides are reported, the documentation does not support the interpretation, that sort of thing. So there needs to be some type of a watchdog situation where these are pulled on occasion, you say once a month or so, you pull 10 or so studies and you review them for final report accuracy. Now we'll talk a little bit about grayscale ultrasound. The biggest thing you can do to help your interpreting physician is to put the vessels in the center of the image, and especially on venous studies when you're actually compressing that vessel. When you push on these vessels, they're going to slide off to the side of the image and the physician is not going to see them. So you want to center your vessels, you want to do your compressions directly down, and you do not want to push the vessels off to the side. Another important aspect here is to use your focus zones. Move those things around, don't be afraid to adjust them, and help improve the image so that the physician can see without a doubt that the vessel is patent. A lot of people think that by optimizing their image, we mean to put color on it. And all color does is give you a little bit of variation in the image. You really still don't know what you're looking at, but it does draw your eye to a certain section. However, as you can see, every one of these images is relatively non-diagnostic. And what you need to do is tweak your image, clean up your gains, use your focus zones, use whatever knobs or anything that your equipment has to improve your image, to improve your quality. You want to be able to see the walls of the vessels, and then you won't be mistaking plaque for noise and that sort of thing. We get some images at the IAC in the case studies that look like this. Oftentimes they are labeled, but even the labeling does not help us identify what the vessel is. So again, you need to tweak your image to the best of your ability. You always want to give the physician the most accurate information you can, because at the end of the day, all he or she has to use to interpret the study is exactly what you have given them. So if you give them bad non-diagnostic images, chances are the interpretation is going to be vague or may even be inaccurate. When you're doing compression technique, it is absolutely critical to get complete compression of a vein in order to determine whether it is thrombosed or not. And this can be a technical issue. You want to do complete compression, wall-to-wall compression. You want to be sure that the vessel stays in the center of the screen. You want to do a compression directly down on top of the vessel, not from the side and that sort of thing. So when you're trying to document compression, you need to be absolutely complete compression. A little bit about spectral Doppler with your ultrasound. You'll see that this is a pretty good image at the top part of the screen. However, when you zero in on the actual sample volume, you see it appears to be outside of the vessel. And so you want to be very specific about where you place that sample volume. And of course, when you use your calipers to measure the peak velocity, you do see that the cursor is at the peak, but it's the peak of the image, not the peak of the waveform. And so that becomes an inaccurate measurement. And on the second waveform there, you can't even see as much of a peak as you do in the first one. And so that is critical to accurate interpretation, of course, is obviously demonstrating the peak of the waveform. Now here's a very nice clear image which you see the exact envelope of the waveform. However, for whatever reason, the caliper falls about halfway down the peak systolic velocity there. And so even when you have good images, you have to slow down, you have to take your time and pay attention and appreciate that the cursor or the caliper may not be where you think it is, so you have to look at what you're doing and you have to take your time to be sure that the calipers are placed in the proper area for accurate measurements. A little bit about color now. Don't be afraid to change your frequencies. Move your color around. Your color frequency can be decreased. You'll see a lot better color flow with that. A lot of people are afraid to change their settings on their machines, but they're there for your use to optimize your images. Don't be afraid. If you tweak it too far to one side, you can always tweak it back. So use all of the tools that your equipment has for you. The color box is critical to getting the image properly. Obviously, your color box is angled in the direction of your flow. And in this situation, it is angled against the direction of flow. So that becomes a very non-diagnostic image. You cannot see much color flow at all. Then when you angle it at 90 degrees, you do pick up a little bit better image. However, when you angle it correctly to the opposite angle in the direction of flow, you see the vessel fills very nicely and becomes a very diagnostic image, and you can put your spectral in there and get a very nice envelope. So I have put all three of them up there so that you can appreciate a side-by-side image of how important it is to angle your color box in the proper angle. Now, even though color is a good thing in some places, when you have too much color, it's a problem, so you have to turn down your gain because here we have way too much color, way too much gain, and you cannot even see the vessel. You don't even know what you're looking at in this image. So too much of a good thing is not good. 60-degree angle correction is absolutely critical to getting proper peak systolic velocities. And so we've taken the same patient, the exact same image, and we have just simply moved the angle around. So on the first image we have a 19-degree angle and our peak systolic velocity is 82. We increase it a little bit to 36 and our velocity jumps up pretty good to 96. When we go over the 60-degree angle, at 69 degrees, the peak systolic velocity is now 217, and when you go way up above at 76 degrees, your peak systolic velocity is 322. So the angle correction is critical to getting accurate measurements. The true technical way to do this, the most accurate way, would be a 56-degree angle where you get a 139 velocity. And this is simply an image of all the different velocity changes there. And you can see how they go all the way from 82 to 322, the same patient, same area of the vessel, same pathology, but based on a very simple technical maneuver, the velocity can change pretty significantly. And the accurate one, of course, 56 degrees, 139 centimeters per second. Probe selection. We certainly do have designated probes and presets on our machine, and that is all determined by the manufacturer of the machine. However, if you are doing a study with the appropriate probe and you do not see what you are looking for, or you do not see anything, it is certainly absolutely perfectly okay to change probes. Now you have to document that you've changed your probe. You may not get all the information that you normally would with your with the correct probe. However, you do get to see the pathology this way. So if you have 2 or 3 probes on your machine and you don't see it, go ahead and switch them out. Use whatever tools you have at your disposal to get the image. And as long as you tell your doctor what you've done and document that on your final report, nobody's going to care how you got the image as long as you got it accurately. Now a little bit about Doppler sample placement. You want to be absolutely certain that the sample volume is inside the vessel, and whether you correct it to walls or flow, that's totally up to you and your policy. However, you do want to be sure that the sample volume is in the flow. So my summary image here is a very nice carotid study, and we have all of the information here that we need. We have a very good clean image on top. We have a very good clean spectrum. You always want to properly annotate your vessel, and you want to be able to say what side you're on, and you want to be able to say what vessel you're in and where you're at in that vessel. And you want to change this for every different segment as you move forward in your study. You cannot leave the proximal right ICA on there even when you're moving forward and when you're changing sides. So you want to be absolutely accurate. Take your time to take the old annotation off and the new annotation put back on. Now the second thing you want to do to get a good study is you want to angle correct your box as we've talked before. You want to be sure your sample volume is either parallel and to flow or walls. And that is the angle correction, and it will tell you on the side of the screen or somewhere on your screen what your angle is. You can keep it at 60, but then you have to heel toe the probe in order to get the vessel angled properly. Or you can adjust that 60 all the way down to 45 if you need to. So you always want to be sure that your angle is appropriate according to how your policy is written and according to how your diagnostic criteria was validated. You want to be sure that when you're giving the interpreting physician samples, you want to give them as much information as possible. So fill that whole axis up with spectrums. Make sure your doctor has as much information as possible. You want to be sure when you're measuring your peak velocities that you have good clean envelopes to your waveform so that your measurement can be as accurate as possible. You want to place your calipers exactly where they need to be to do accurate measurements of your spectrum. And if you do all of those things on each and every study, you will in fact have a very perfect image, and you will have a very good diagnostic and accurate exam. Thank you very much for participating in this lecture.